So this is super exciting because you got to see where this conversation was born, which is Alex, the founder of Podmatch, came on and we were exploring the idea of a group directory because when I did my TEDx talk, that's what pretty much everybody asked me at the end of it was, what group should I join? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, you could go to Meetup, right? Or Eventbrite. I've helped people do this in my challenges because that's my whole thing is telling people, what is your goal? Now find a group. And I've kind of gone through it with them where I'm like, okay, let's look on Eventbrite. Let's look on Meetup. But there's always, it's just not good enough. And so after the talk, I mentioned it. I have a comedy coach and he was like, maybe you should do a global group directory. And then I met Alex, who built Podmatch. And then he was like, you have to meet Dan. And so here is Dan.
Here I am.
Here you are. So I'd love you to introduce yourself and what you do. And then we're going to take you on this. We were just going to have a kind of like a discovery call to see if I'm going to work with him. And then I'm just like, do you mind if we just do this live and we can kind of like work through the process? And he was like, sure. So here we go.
Yeah, it's building in public. And that's one of the cool things that I love to do. Yeah. So, and then the other, just before I do that too, like what you just mentioned is it's that leading people into the next thing. And you probably lose a lot of people when it's like, well, hey, what should I join? And then you just kind of have them going every which way. And then that's a lost opportunity. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, just a couple quick thoughts there. But yeah, so my name is Dan Hafner, as you know, Stacey alluded to. Good friends with Alex of Podmatch. We've never actually met in person, but we've been good friends. You know, we've been in a couple different masterminds for quite a while. So love talking with Alex, love connecting with him and stuff. Podmatch, for any of you who are not on there, is definitely something to check out. But I'm out here in Pittsburgh, PA. I've been running a small agency for myself since about 2020, since around COVID, and it's around it's in the software development world, as you could probably guess. Just changed the name to Dapper No Code, because you can guess it's a lot focused on no code tools. So it's really, really neat because we work with a lot with people just like Stacey, who are individuals or small startups or people in this space who are looking to build something, and you're kind of the exact avatar of that, of like, you don't really know the next step, might not be super technically inclined, as to the point of you can probably hold your own on a computer, but when it comes to like writing code or figuring out software, you have like no idea, which is how I got my start in all this as well too. So I just kind of built this from a hobby into a freelancing thing into a business. So it's kind of my story. Yeah.
So you stay with no code then? Like, will you help people, or is it that you're just helping people build something in the beginning, or can I keep it on a no code?
Oh, you can keep it for sure. Yeah. Yeah, there used to be, when they first started, that was one of the big things with people was like, well, I can't scale with no code, you know. That's actually going away. That's actually, I was just telling her before we hit record, I was at a conference for the past couple of days virtually where there was several people that actually came on and were speakers that actually had custom coded applications that switched to a no code solution from like big enterprise levels too. Not just like, oh, I have this app that I paid somebody to develop and then did this. They actually consciously chose to switch to a different solution because of the advantages of it. So so you can definitely stay on. But there's somebody like Alex who took Podmatch that was on Bubble and moved it into a custom solution. So it gives you flexibility. Yeah.
So cool. So you guys, I want you to see this from a lot of different perspectives, because the reason why it's cool that we're doing this live is because, number one, I am wanting to know, I would have paid you for this session, you know what I mean? Like in terms of learning, like how to do this. And number two, so I'm actually really excited now that I know it's even can stay on no code. I'm like, oh man, maybe I could do this. Because for some reason, sorry, my dog is in the back, like hacking back there. She's like,
oh no, we're
making sure she's okay. But anyway, no. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to switch it to another platform. I don't want to do that. So you just answered that objection, which is good. Number two, I love using my community as a way to kind of keep these ideas alive, because this happened to me. I had a dating challenge that I was running, and I had the founder of my podcast platform come on an expert panel because he did 365 podcast episodes every day for a year. And so when you do that many, you're good at rejection. So I brought him in from a rejection perspective for an expert panel for the dating challenge. And he gave everyone a dare, which was to start a podcast. And because we then explored that in my group, No one was interested the first round, but then someone heard it the second round and then basically said, "Oh, are you still helping people start podcasts?" And I was like, "I'm not, but I could." And that's when my Start a Podcast challenge came, because someone heard me talking about it with someone, even though it wasn't at the time. And so it kind of keeps an idea alive, which I really like. Yeah. And then the third thing is now you guys get to learn, and maybe you get to meet Dan. Maybe there's some idea that you've had in your mind and you had no idea that it was even possible, but then you're like, wait, I could actually do this and it doesn't involve all this craziness. So anyway, so I just wanted to point out how cool it is that you're doing this and you were willing. So, okay. So I think what I'm going to do is let you run the rest, like whatever you need to know for me to decide if it's a good fit for us to work together. Yeah. If that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And just before I dive into that, I will tell you kind of my origin story of how I got into this, because it's very, very useful for that. So
yeah,
when I got engaged to my now wife, we were actually engaged for 2 years because we wanted to get married the year after, but it just didn't work out. We were moving. So we just decided, okay, let's do another year. I gained a little bit of weight, obviously, because I was not very disciplined for those 2 years, but I needed to lose some weight. And I was really into, at the time, a lot of apps that you could basically kind of bet money to be like, hey, I'm going to lose this amount of weight. And if I don't, I'm going to lose this amount of money or something like that. And it was very, very motivating for me. But I was a runner. And there was no app that kind of incorporated running into this.
yeah.
I was like, boom, app idea, business idea, right? So that's how the inspiration struck me, which is what a lot of people kind of go through, kind of like you. You're like, oh, you know what? This would be really cool for like an app or a tool or a software, right? So the next stage was, okay, well, I don't know how to code. So maybe I'll teach myself to code. I'll just go and take some classes, right? That lasted about 2 weeks. And I was like, no way am I doing this. This is not for me, not my thing. If you can do it, more power to you. So then I was like, well, maybe I can just pay some people, right? So I went on and I found all these freelancers and agencies. And you wouldn't believe, I got quotes of like $250,000. I was working a $12 an hour job at the time. So I was like, yeah, that ain't going to work. One thing led to another, and I found this world of no code. And I was like, holy crap, like I could actually bring this thing to life. And I ultimately did. And I launched it, and it was very successful. I actually shut it down eventually because I got into this agency space. So the app doesn't even exist any longer, but it was really cool because I built a skill, and that's how I got into doing all this. But I tell that because that's how it starts with a lot of people, is you have this spark of idea, and then you kind of, one thing leads to another. And then you're like, well, how do I actually bring this to life?
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I love teaching that concept of you just, what you said was like, learn the skill. And so then I was able to do whatever, right? So even though it's not still living, you learned how it is. I kind of do that with my community building strategy, where I'm like, don't get so caught up in what it is, because you're learning the skill. And if you stop and you're waiting for 6 months, then you're going to be no better off than you were if you just make a pretend group. You just learn the skills while you're building it. And then when you actually get the more clarity, then you actually will know what you're doing. So
yeah. Very cool. Okay. So, all right. So let's dive into this thing. So now from what I kind of know about this is it's almost like a directory for finding groups. It's almost like the Facebook group part of Facebook, where I can search and kind of have a search to find what I'm looking for. And then it would show things based on results. Is that kind of right? Or maybe you give me the ultimate vision of it.
Yeah. And this is good, because I'm still trying to identify what would be the coolest thing to do. But in my mind, because I've been helping people do this, right? And so right now I have a spreadsheet I'll just kind of talk a lot and then it'll come into something. Okay. So basically when I do a dating challenge, or I do a 2-hour cocktail party challenge, or go to events, whatever the challenge is going. Oh, the bucket list challenge was another one where I give a dare and I'm like, okay, now in order to travel the world, Do the Thing is a good group to be in, but you actually want to be in a travel group also, right? So then I'm looking with them and I'm like, okay, let's go on Meetup. What travel groups are there? Or let's go to the library or the community center, whatever is near them. So I want it to be like in person or online. So that's number one. Number two, I want it to be around a goal. So like if it's travel, or if it's business, or if it's a leadership group or a business group or whatever it is. So I almost want there to be a goal. So I don't know if it would start with a survey or something. I'm not sure. Some kind of like, what kind of is your goal, and help them identify their goal first. I mean, I technically do have a formula to help people achieve their goals. So potentially I could work that into it where it's like, well, do you want that goal? And then it almost then, I mean, this is crazy. This probably is code. I'm always going to go over the top and then we can slim it down. So I'm like, oh, it would be cool because then they could say, this is what I'm looking for. And then it pulls up the 5 possible things. Or like you said, just really simple just to get started. And if I'm channeling my inner Alex, what he said was he's like, just kind of focus on the nuts and bolts of it when you start. So then it doesn't get all sideways. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that matching thing based on desires and goals and stuff is actually not that difficult to pull off technically inside of the tool. So yeah, that's definitely doable. I've done that many times. We do that a lot with fitness apps, right? Like when they were like, hey, I want to lose weight and I want to, focus on 2 workouts a week and I eat this much and whatever. And it kind of curates things to you. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, I have to let you know, this is so funny. So Niyama Ashang's here. He's been an expert on a lot of my panels. So you guys might want to connect after because he definitely needs to do some kind of no code portal. And then Paul also just mentioned he's a best-selling author where he goes around everywhere and basically like helps people publish books. And then eventually he does book tours and stuff. So it's kind of exciting because I feel like I'm seeding all these future by this conversation. So anyway, yeah, so that's cool. I didn't actually think that was possible. So, okay, so that's where we would start from and then I think people also, so one of the things I like about being with people that have a common goal is that it is diverse. There's all different backgrounds and beliefs, and it's the goal is what's in common, right? So there's part that thinks it would be cool to have an age kind of demographic, but then there's another part of me that's like, I feel like that could be overcomplicating it. And does it really matter how old you are? Is it more about the goal? So anyway, that's something I don't know either.
I do remember you mentioning that with Alex. Yeah. And the thing that kind of gets me with this is just what you said before. It's like, so you do your challenge, people find their thing that they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then like you said, that kind of leads into the next problem of like, okay, what specifically focused group am I going to find? But then you mentioned something that was very key. You mentioned Eventbrite, Meetup.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably all kinds of other ones out there.
Yeah.
The problem that I think someone runs into with that is that one, you might not even know, like me, like I could probably name those 2 and then that's probably it, like Facebook or maybe a third one. Are there other platforms where I haven't even heard of that your solution could present me? And then 2, those being all in one place. Those being all in one place, I think is super powerful because that gives you an edge automatically over your competition, over all these other pieces of competition. And you can say, hey, look, you can find people from Meetup, things on Eventbrite, things on Facebook groups, things wherever. And it brings in that one, like that gives you such a marketable position.
Could you do that?
Yeah. I mean, you could do it so it's called like APIs. They're basically like, they kind of pull in, information and stuff. To start, you could probably do a lot of that manually. Like kind of like Alex said, keeping it very MVP, because sometimes you might find like, okay, there's all these groups on Eventbrite, but maybe Eventbrite doesn't publish that information and kind of allow you to pull from it sometimes, like, so that's just an idea. I know like some people kind of come up with that, but that kind of, I think, because again, a lot of people get lost in like, I want to build this feature, I want to build this feature, I want to build this feature, and you lose sight of the actual problem you're solving,
Yeah, so it's such a good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, so basically it's like an aggregated directory and then also where I can add groups to it. So it sounds like I would have control with something something you could help me create, whether it's an API that gets pulled in from different things that are already out there, but it puts it all in one place. And I can also just enter data myself and say, okay, maybe people submit applications, like I have a group, right? Or on my TEDx talk, I'm having people start to do this where they're commenting what their group is. So then I can like maybe even enter it off of that potentially, or at least have someone to reach out to say, okay, you have a group, let's have you come in there.
Yeah, because that's the second level is, do you foresee this being something where people are actually conducting and hosting these groups and the actual interaction is taking place inside of the platform?
No, I don't want a social platform. Yeah, I just want a directory. Yeah.
Okay. So it would link out to these things.
Well, yeah. So I'm just looking I think I did ask Alex if I should do like reviews or whatever on there. And he was saying don't in the beginning because unless they ask for it, that was just something I thought could be interesting. But I feel like there's enough social platforms out there that I think if I'm just like, this is a resource to find a group. So like, okay, I want to start running when I live in San Diego. And maybe it does have divorced people, like over, because I think that is valuable. If I'm looking for like a specific niche, it would be good to have checkboxes, just like you would a dating app, I guess, right? And then if there are none, then it's fine. But if I'm able to somehow do that, what would be really cool? Oh, I love this. Thank you. Is you're almost like, what are the things that what do you connect on? This is funny. This is my audience building strategy. I'm basically doing it for this. This is so funny how everything always kind of like connects back to the thing that you do. But like, what are the things that you really connect to, right? Or identify as? And so for some, it could be you're single, or it could be that you're over 50, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not looking for that. It's almost like a dating app. You like fill out your profile. And so those are your things. So when you do look for, I just thought a ClassPass, I wonder if it'd be kind of how that is, something like that. But that's more classes, which I think is one piece of it. I'd want to stream that stuff in. But anyway, that kind of idea, right? Where you're putting your profile and this is who I am. Okay, now I'm looking for the group. Because I know sometimes I'll be looking for stuff for people. This is when I get annoyed because a lot of times I'm doing like a group Zoom when I'm so excited because I'm like, great, let's implement your dating dares. Let's go find your guy, right? Or whatever it is. And then we're looking, and then out of most of them are online. It's like, it's not as many in person as you would think that there should be when you're looking for stuff. And that's why I then created this whole other spreadsheet where I'm like, okay, go to the library, go to the community center, blah, 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 all these different things. Because it's all out there. It's just all mixed. Like you said, it's like some are here and some are there. And I've even done reverse engineering where it's like, okay, if you find a group that you've liked, now let's Google the name of it and see what other sites it comes up on. So then you can at least find the platforms where those things live. So I've done that kind of stuff before. But I guess what I'm validating is that this is a legit problem, because every time I've tried to help someone, it always just take a little bit longer than I would want to find it. It's not as easy as you think.
Yeah.
So I think if it's like your profile, is there a way to do that where I almost figure out what are the things that matter, and then I have them fill out their dating profile, but for a group profile, what do you care about? And then what are the things you want to work on? And then from there, maybe it just says even like, because maybe it's just a social club that they want to find. Like, I want to be, what do you want more of in your life? You check that. And then it says, what group do you want to find? And then somehow the keywords kind of match it.
Yeah. So that's like a tagging system, right? It's very similar. Like, you remember when Clubhouse came out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who remember that, it was kind of like when you started, and you could always change it as you would go. There was like a whole big selection thing of, okay, I'm interested in the NFL and MLB and podcasting and politics and whatever. And then like that feed is curated based on those selections, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that does take a little bit of implementation to kind of do. And then obviously the more broad you go, the more it kind of incorporates and kind of, compounds on itself. But it's not a super complicated thing to do. But once it's done correctly, it works really, really well, because then that lends itself to what we do a lot of times in the fitness stuff is the recommendation section, right? So you can kind of have like a database where it's like just search all groups with no tagging, no anything, no preferences, no other filters, it's just open search, right? But then there's a recommendation section that after you go through that and you click your interests, okay, then it sorts through the records that are already in there, and it says, hey, based on this, you would probably like this, Yeah,
that'd be good. And then it's almost like I like to do stand-up comedy. And so since you like stand-up comedy, you might also like improv or this whatever Toastmasters thing kind of thing, because it labels it. I love that, because then you're like, it's almost like what I said in my talk, where it's like you have the mothership, like my group directory is kind of like the mothership, because it's suggesting things that maybe you didn't know about before. Because once you do one thing, you want to do everything in that same genre. You don't want to just stay in that one group. You want to keep expanding and growing too.
Yeah. And another thing that just comes to mind for me with this too is, again, we don't want to go feature crazy, but one thing that I think would be super useful based of like, if I'm using the platform, would be a notification system of like, hey, this new group, just got added to the platform that is like Podmatch does this. Podmatch does this really well. I'll get an email that says, hey, Dan, this new person just joined Podmatch. They think they'd be a great fit for your show. And I click on it and it takes me into Podmatch. And then it's like, hey, this person's an AI expert and they talk about this and they talk about the other thing. And I'm like, great, come on the show. And something like that, I at least think would be super useful. That might not be a day one thing, but that's a very useful thing that I can see being, I think that would be a fan favorite for sure. You know, because you want that stuff. That's why you're joining something like that. It's like, show me, it's like a realtor. It's like when I'm looking for houses, I put in my input and I want to get recommendations. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of right now, I'm thinking about, this is so annoying because I don't want to start another group right now, but I'm thinking about starting a group in San Diego because I want to get out more and I want to go hiking and I want to do more of these things. And it's just too annoying to find a group that does it. So I'm like, oh, for me, it's easier to just start my own group. And so anyway, the point is it's like, if you have something that's notifying you and saying, oh, this exists, then I don't have to be thinking about it. It just tells me about it, which is actually really cool. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so then I'll tell you I think you heard it from the live that I did with him, but just in case there's questions about it, my monetization strategy it's kind of cool. It added another layer when I realized, oh, there's actually, I could make money. Because at first I do things for fun. But if I'm putting money in it, investing stuff with you, then obviously there has to be something attached. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. It's list building for both the people that want to join and then the companies. But I have this Find Your Voice challenge, which for the person is amazing because it helps them identify what their goal is, which helps them then identify what kind of group they want to start, because I get them to tap into who they are, what they want, what their dreams are. And then they're also getting out of their comfort zone through the challenge. And so it sort of gets them to want to take bigger risks. So that's really cool from an individual standpoint. And then from the company standpoint, if they put Find Your Voice into their community or with their employees, then it's like a goal activator and also a space creator for a space safe community. So I don't know how to work all that in, or if it's just like, oh, if you want to explore this Find Your Voice challenge, like, and then do a badge, like this is a certified Find Your Voice. And I don't know what I'll call it. I might change the name, but a certified do the thing, maybe that's it. Certified do the thing community or something. So that if they went through, if their community did that, then they at least have some kind of mark. Because even if the person doesn't go through it in the community, if the person knows the community did it, it shows that they're immediately a safe space because it's a very vulnerable and open kind of challenge. That makes sense. Yeah.
So you're almost talking about they would almost be like affiliates for your challenge, kind of?
No, it's like they'd be my customers. Yeah. So, but potentially, maybe it doesn't have to be maybe there's no paywall or anything, but it's just like a thing, like we have this available, maybe, I don't know. But so pretty much think about like you joining Meetup, right? And then somehow, maybe it's in emails too. Somehow, maybe it would be in there. Like, oh, are you struggling to find your group? Or would you want to get more out of your comfort zone? Then do the Find Your Voice challenge. So that would be for the actual person joining. That's one approach. And then the company or the community or the group approach is, do you want to show your members that your community is a safe space to speak up and to share and to be open? Then you want to do this for your community so that you could get the Do the Thing community badge or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I'll just say, kind of, you know, keeping in mind that I keep forgetting we're live on this because I have you on Zoom. So it's actually kind of nice for me. But one of the cool things about building something like this is you can trigger basically back end things, which is kind of what I help build with people as well too, because you're kind of getting to this point now where you see like, okay, I'm gonna have people signing up for this. Now I need to keep them engaged, and they're not just, they're not going to stay on the app forever or stay on the, they're not going to have it pulled up all day, every day. So how do I re-engage them? How do I get them involved in sequences and automations and things like that? And we have a whole back-end system to do that. So as soon as they come in, you could fire automations and trigger different workflows and things like that, which is really nice because it just is like, it's like hey, come on back, check it out. That's a really neat thing that not a lot of people like, because you're building a business around this thing. You're not just building the thing to have the thing. You're building, like you said, it's a monetization.
I usually build the thing to build the thing, and then the money gets itself figured out after. But it's like more intentional about, because I'd be putting the money in. Yeah, that's cool. I like that and think about that. And then I was thinking as you were talking, it's kind of cool when I see you guys here because it helps me think about specific things. So hey, Allison. So Allison has a tarot community where she does these really cool tarot events. And so like how would anyone find that, right? And then Rennie, he's the founder. He's not here right now, but I'm just thinking of him now because I just saw Paul. Paul has a group, Publish, Speak, and Prosper, where he doesn't do meetups yet. They're online, but that would be a group, right? And then Rennie is someone that I've had come in my community for that he has Shut Up and Write, which is like these local meetups at these coffee stores and no one knows about. He's got hundreds of thousands of members all over the world. But whenever I tell anyone about it, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for telling me about Shut Up and Write. Now I've written my book. And it's like, how do we put that all? So anyway, I'm just kind of like revalidating that there's all these amazing organizations. And think about volunteer too. I'm thinking like volunteer groups. Right now, there is a place for it, but I just feel like anytime I've wanted to look for something there, I always end up having to really spend more time than it needed. And so, yeah.
Well, and I'll just give you a little idea too. There was an app we built a while ago that we did something very similar with this. And this is something that you could do as an extra monetization strategy is for any, maybe it's free to host your group on the app or kind of have it listed in the directory, but you can pay for promotion. You could pay for a priority listing.
Smart.
You can actually, you could send out a weekly newsletter and have a promotional section in there to say, hey, here you are, and that's sponsorship levels, right? To say, hey, for, $500, you get sponsored of our whole thing, or like you get a live in our group, or you you have so many other assets that you could build into this to monetize.
True.
Because that's like you said, that resonates a lot. Like you can have the greatest group or event ever, but if no one knows about it, does it matter? That's a tough thing. That's what a lot of people struggle with.
I also think of the person that's been like, because I've seen these people, I got to start a book challenge and they've been aching to write a book for 10 years. And if it's just stuck in your head, you're not going to write the book. It's either you have to spend $50,000 to pay someone, right? To pay someone to write the book. Or you could join a group like Paul's group, the Publish, Speak, and Prosper, or go to the Shut Up and Write thing. And now all of a sudden you're writing your book because you're with people with the shared goal, right? That's the thing. That's the whole secret. But and so it's also, my point is the company is sad because they don't have the person, but then also the person is sad because they're aching to do this goal that they don't know why they can't. And it's just because they're not with people.
Yeah. And like I just told you, I was at an event for 2 days and like I'm very lit up around, man, these people are doing so many cool things. And like, that's who my people are. I never would have thought they'd be my people, but
Could I side tangent with you for a second and then we can go back because I want to find out pricing and all that. I don't know if you're open to doing that publicly. Okay, cool. Can I side tangent on what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a chance to watch my TEDx talk?
I did. Yeah. It was a little while ago, so I'm not super fresh. But yeah.
So basically, the whole idea is this. It's like instead of your normal friends and family being the one that help you get the goal, which is what a lot of people think, it's like, I'm going to depend on, let's just use running. That's the easiest example. So I'm going to run a half marathon, right? I have really cool friends, very supportive and very encouraging. But if none of them run, then there's no way I'm going to run that half marathon. I've got to join a running group, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to somehow connect what you just did with your event to people that are running those events with my TEDx talk to show them that they could use the concept of my people as a way to promote their event. I'm just curious if you even understand what I just said, because I just spent like an hour in my mastermind and they still are unclear. But like, for example, Podfest, I talked to them this morning and I think they're going to send an email. I was like, you guys have Podfest coming in January. And people think that they can't afford Podfest or they don't have the time to go. Not everyone. It's obviously a really popular event that people want to go to, but there is a percentage of people that are holding back because they don't see the value of what you just said by being in the room. But when they understand the concept of my people, it's like a law now. Like we have to be around people because of what you just said, that creative idea, all of that. So anyway, I'm still working on explaining it. And you just said it really good for me to be able to. So I don't know if anything, just any reflection you have on that would be good.
No, I mean, I do see that. It is good to be very frank and honest with you. This journey of me being in business has been a very long and lonely road. And my wife's in the medical field, so we've moved every few years and it got very hard to have friends. It's very hard to make friends when you're an adult. So I've been consciously trying to get myself into more communities, even though I know I'm like an introverted extrovert. I'm I'm an extroverted introvert. I could sit here all day with my headphones on and not talk to a single person and perfectly happy. But I can also come on lives like this and like do the damn thing. You know what I mean? So I'm an extroverted introvert, but like, my wife and I, we just joined a couples group with our church. And that has been incredibly awesome for us. Something that we were just like so thankful we were able to do. Then coming to these events, I joined a technology specific community in Pittsburgh here, which has been awesome. I went to a big event last Friday, just being around all these people talking about AI, and a couple people talk about no code and just all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I just needed, it's so cool because because a lot of us are on this path kind of alone. Yeah. And it's cool to be like, no, there's other weirdos out there like me, There's a feeling I think that's innately human about that. That's like, it's like a form of validation that we all kind of seek.
Yeah, it's so true. That's why I'm so passionate about this. So let's say you were going to have a no code event and you understand this concept of my people and why it's important to be around other people that care about no code, which to me means if you care about no code, that means you're wanting to put something out in the world. You're wanting it to be relatively simple and not crazy. And you're pulling in people that are also somewhat risk takers, because that's a little scary to do something like that, right? And I'm sure there's other things in there, but what would be a way to just for them to come to your event? And if you were able to use my people, as you don't want to do it alone, you want to be in here. Just curious if you have one little thing you can just reflect on there.
Yeah, I mean, I actually tried this a couple of years ago, and then I never really went super deep into it. But I used to do, like you mentioned, challenges as well. I used to do a challenge. I haven't done it anymore, but I was very new into I couldn't really nail down what I was offering, what I was doing with it. But I think a lot of people they call them hackathons now, where it's like a weekend to just come up with an idea and learn the basics and duct tape something together that kind of works. And then you can go from there. Something like that would be really cool. And then even something like that, like a 3-day, 5-day type of thing that's like 0 to MVP type of thing. Like, I think that's the biggest hurdle that a lot of people face is like, because once you get through that and you kind of learn the skill and you learn how to do this, then you start to see what's possible. Then you start to be like, oh, okay, I could really do this,
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I love it. Okay, so now the next, can I ask too, what would be the questions I would want to ask my audience to understand what their pain points are now in terms, because I know what mine are when I help people, but are there any questions that would be good for me to ask them? So then as you're building this out, I'm able to dial in on their pain. I think the one is what I said, where there's just too many places to look. So I call that, it's people say confused mind doesn't buy. I say a confused mind doesn't do, because it's like, if it's too hard for me to find it, it's like, forget it. I'm just going to go sit on the couch.
Yeah. I mean, again, you wouldn't even have to bring up the software or the app, or you could mention something like I might say, would be like, hey, I'm thinking about putting together this platform to finally help people with, finding the right group for whatever they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. What open-ended questions, right? What do you think would be useful in something like that? Like a very broad section, because that gets there. It's almost like this, when somebody asks you like, hey, how can I help? It's not, can I help you? It's, how can I help you? Your brain automatically thinks, well, what do I need help with? Like, oh, help me with this, right? Yeah. So something like that's really good. And then specifically is just, I would probably get very, very specific around like, do you usually join a lot of groups? Are you already a part of a lot of groups? Do you get results out of groups? Do you have trouble finding the right one? How many times have you joined the right one and found out that it's not the right one? You had to join 5 before you found the right one. Things like that, I might ask, because those are going to lead you down to features like the recommendation stuff or the notification stuff or things like that. So those are just a couple off the top of my head I can think of.
I like that.
We have a very good tool called ChatGPT that can also give you a lot of things as well too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If we did this could I have people fill out an application to join or whatever it is, survey application, and then it automatically goes in so I don't have to deal with inputting people manually?
Yeah, we've done that before. You can build what's called like a wait list.
Okay.
So we can build, it's like basically a very generic landing page that's just like, hey, sign up for early access. And then they opt in, and then it's like, hey, would you also take a minute to fill out the survey for feedback or for, market research or calls, something like that. So you could build something like that, and then it would capture all those questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what would be the next steps if I was like, okay, yeah, I want to do this?
Okay. I mean, do you have a timeline on when you would want to bring this to life? I mean, I ask this because some people are like, I want this tomorrow. Some people are like, I don't really care.
No,
You have any idea?
I'm pretty open. My thing, the way I work is I get a lot done, but as long as I have it moving, then I'm good. Does that make sense? So in my mind, you immediately gave me an action that if I wanted, I have a masterclass I'm promoting next week, so I probably won't do it before that's done. But I'm like, oh, I could just create a waiting list. I didn't think about that. And just I at least have one thing I could start with, right? And then maybe ask a question when they join the waiting list, saying like, what would you want to see out of this? Just to at least get immediate feedback. And then, so to answer your question that's a great first step for me. So now then if I have a second step, then it's like, I'm good as long as something's moving.
Yeah.
So I'm not in a rush as long as I can move the needle because I'm learning as I go, if that makes sense.
That's actually how we do a lot of projects anymore. It's called a milestone approach.
Oh, I like that.
And you almost kind of take to say we're going to scope this project and it's going to be this big cool thing we're building for you. We might break it down into like 5 milestones. And we'll say like milestone 1 is we have the waitlist system set up and built. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is the generic designs of what this might look like and how it might go. Okay. The third is an actual, maybe we start building the sign-up process and the tagging system and capturing all that. And then the fourth would be like, let's start inputting data and how groups are actually going to be found in the search system and whatever. And then 5 would be, let's test it and launch it. Those are just 5 off the top of my head that I came up with. But that's usually very cool because like you said, if you try to, I always like the analogy of eating an elephant. You can't eat an elephant by, you gotta.
Oh, it's so much better to just piece it up. Yeah, it's really better for my mind too. Something else that's coming to my mind also, I'm just going to say it to see where it lands. But so I'm also working on, so I help people build online communities. That's my kind of like main thing that I'm doing. But is that your dog?
All right. Yeah. He's just going to scream.
Okay. But I now have realized the Find Your Voice challenge that I've done for people, and then I'm starting to do it in people's communities. It's also an amazing thing for companies to help develop leaders because it gives people a chance to speak up in a group. And I'm almost thinking, gosh, because I owned a staffing company for 20 years. And I remember I couldn't figure out how I was going to connect it to this group directory. And I just think I figured it out. But I used to get approached by all these companies they had kind of like a group directory, but not really. I'd have to remember what it was. My brain isn't getting there right now, but it was almost something that I could give to employees to also that could say, okay, now your company got you in this company group. Now join this other group. It was like a VIP access pass that they had to this thing. So anyway, I'm saying it out loud because I don't know where it lands, but I don't want to forget it for the recording's sake. But it was almost like the company would pay. I remember we paid a few $1,000s a month to give our employees access to this thing that was like VIP access to go to like these different memberships. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of what you could even do is, since you're already an authority in the space, is there's always an upsell for any group that does join you to say, hey, you need help getting this set up, white glove service. There's always something you could do for that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that might look like for you or what, but
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
A lot of different things you could do.
Okay. So next steps.
Next steps. Well, yeah, we could go through. I actually got a cool thing we could do. Can you let me share my screen?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
So what I'll do is I'll walk you through this thing I have called, hold on, let me put it. I have like 9,000 tabs open, so it'll probably be better to. So this is called my app cost calculator.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I built this. This is a no-code app. Okay. Do you see it?
Not yet, but I see. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. How much does it cost to make an app? You see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically, this is something I built it's very simple, very straightforward, and it basically gives a ballpark idea of what you can expect. So for any of you guys watching, you can go to our site. You can do this for free.
That's cool.
And this is really, really neat because I just want to pre-frame this. You know how many times I've been to different sites and I've put in their calculator stuff, and all they do is they want to get you on an email thing. Mm-hmm. Like you literally have to input your all kinds of information and then wait for them to get on a call to like, oh, then we'll give you the quote. This does ask for your email, but only so we can email you a copy of it. So it's not like, hey, you get your quote when you book a call. Like it's
Yeah, that's cool then. Yeah.
Anyway,
I
okay.
like that you took something that was annoying and you made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is actually a part I need to improve. So you can't pick multiple of these, although we can build it to be all three at once. Usually we just add a little bit extra if you want to do it as like an Apple and Android and that kind of stuff. For you, I would probably start this as a web app.
Yeah.
There's less messing around with Apple and Android. And you can also make it mobile too.
Okay.
Size of the app, based on what you've said, it might actually fall in this medium category.
Okay.
This is just with page size. More than 7 pages tends to be a larger app. This doesn't really make a huge difference. I'm probably going to say, let's just go with medium. We'll go with medium. And then for the level of UI and design, you have minimum, basic, or professional. I usually just go with professional with people because when you're putting something out there, you don't really want it to look basic or minimum, you know?
Yeah.
Unless it's just something for you, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely say professional. Now, this is where we have fun. And we have the app features that you can scroll through. So we got this whole list of different things. Okay. So I'll just kind of walk this through. If you see any, shout them out, but this is usually what I do. So I would say probably people would sign up with their email and password.
Yeah.
I don't usually do the social signups a lot, even though you can. LinkedIn's usually Facebook's probably the easiest, or Google, but I usually leave those because those are actually a lot of messing around for an MVP. Activity feed or social wall. So this would be something where they would actually see like a newly added ones or be able to post and do different things like that. I don't think you're looking for something like that.
Right.
Okay. People aren't probably going to need to do.
Interesting. I'm not going to do this now because I'm going to make it go crazy. So it is weird. I'm like keep talking myself out of this. So I help people build online communities. Right now I'm using Facebook, but it's platform agnostic. But technically, I guess if it had an activity feed social wall, they wouldn't need to go to Facebook. They could just use this website, right? But that makes it crazy, right? Doesn't it? Because then I'm like, then we're in an app where you're like,
well, yeah. And remember, just like this could be one or the other. You don't have to make it a social wall where there's posting and commenting and chaos. Like it could literally just be an activity feed that's, not engageable.
Okay.
You could do that.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what? We can click it. We can click it just to see. You could always remove this stuff when you're done, so you can play with it too.
Oh, there's the ratings. That's so funny. Should we do ratings? Tell me what you think about ratings. Okay, let's see what they say.
Okay. I did click profiles. You mentioned profile before, and tags. We did.
Okay,
you did say tags.
Yeah.
Search feature, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll wait on ratings or reviews.
Yeah.
Dashboard is probably not needed for this because it's more of a search thing. Privacy settings doesn't really apply to this. It is custom, but that doesn't really apply here. App icon design is like an add-on we have. I usually leave that because you can get that done on like ChatGPT for free now. Cloud syncing doesn't really apply. Barcodes.
I like the maps and the geolocation.
Oh, you can definitely do that. So that's basically a way you could show like a map view if there's actual like events that have physical locations. I think a lot of online groups aren't going to have that though. But if it's like a running group,
it's online and in person. So when Allison said ratings are a very personal thing, can ruin someone. And Michelle is, oh yeah, I agree. That's what I was worried about too. Michelle, I'll just ask, do you create dating apps too? If you could create a dating
I never have, but I have all the tools to be able to do it. Yeah, we have a cool like flashcards. So I built a Tinder like type of swipe right, swipe left type of thing.
You did?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. Okay. So calendar integration, I don't really think that's applicable. Reservations. You don't want people to really message each other because we said we're taking them off the platform, right? Forums or commenting, that might be something that you could do, but again, that's kind of turning it into a social network.
Yeah.
Now, just to keep on this thought, I have built very similar like tools like to Slack, where you could build like a community chat. that could also be a down the road thing if people want it or whatever.
As you're talking, because I am starting to get overwhelmed, and so which is good. It's good because this is exactly what happens and how we could all talk.
That's good feedback.
Everything, is because I'm like, oh my gosh, because it's like now I'm like, oh, do I want that? Do I want that? Right? But it sounds like going back to like Alex's point, it's like the minimum viable is I just need that. This is good. I like seeing what's there, but it's almost like as a baseline, is this something people want? Where like you could find the shut up and write, and you could find the publish, speak, and prosper, and you could find the running group, right? So and then it kind of doesn't matter, right? Then it all can be added and evolved, right, as we go.
Exactly. And remember, I keep clicking on these because you can take these off at the end. It's not at the end of the world. Like it will update, so you can always take that off. Social sharing is something that's not very hard to do. It's like you click that little share button and then you can tweet it or text it or Facebook it or whatever.
Yeah, I like that because then they can share the app and or the website and the group, right?
Yeah, because all it does is bring people back to the app. So no shopping cart, there's no payment processing, no
payment processing fee. There isn't one, right? Because ClassPass has one because they charge a monthly fee to join these classes or whatever. But
that would be if you wanted to like actually accept payments and do Stripe payments. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing would be kind of cool is if the company if it was a charge for their group, if somehow it could be done in the app, but that complicates it, huh?
Could, a little bit,
yeah.
The only other thing I see on here, obviously we mentioned APIs, which might not be something you need for the initial piece because you could just hand do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is really when you're talking about having hundreds and thousands of groups and just kind of going crazy.
Yeah.
This is expensive too. But then the only other thing that you would have to probably think about is the approval and moderation. Would you want to approve every group that came on and wanted to post in the app, or would you just want to allow people to just post their group?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question.
My advice would probably be to start with an approval moderation piece, and then you could always automate that down the road. That's kind of where we went through a phase where I built an app where we did like challenges and stuff like that. And we had an approval process in it. And it was very simple. Like they would come into a queue and then you would just click approve. And then like it was listed. Like it wasn't very complicated to do. Mm-hmm. It's just an extra process to build.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's just leave all that. And then we'll just click next. And we do have to say this. What's your email again? Or you have to give it if it's live.
Oh, that's fine. Steve, and just Michelle, I think might reach out to you. She said she's working with a client right now and she wants a dating app. So
okay.
There you go. Stacey is dothingformula.com.
dothingformula.com. Okay, are you ready for this?
Okay. Oh no. Oh my God. I'm not ready.
Are you not ready?
No, I'm good.
Hey, you wanted to go live. Hey,
I'm good. I know. I'm good.
All right.
It's like unwind.
4,509.
Hey, are you serious? That's it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We're pretty conservative on our features, and I actually did. I said the medium and all that kind of stuff too.
So that's
so you could do hide. You could do breakdown, and this is where you can take stuff out. So if you actually want, you can't really put these back in, but if you wanted to like take out the social sharing, it kind of gives you like what these features. It's like a rough ballpark cost of what the feature, costs. Yeah. And then the only other thing to remember is that if you did ever want to take this onto the Apple and Android stores, there'd be extra things in that too. Yeah. Because that's, just kind of adapting it and stuff.
So much more money.
Yeah, that's kind of the process that I went down when I was like, they were like, yeah, $250,000. And I was like, get out of here. No, I mean, a lot of our projects that we do are actually 10K or below. That's actually the bulk of what we do. We do them all over the place, but that's actually where most of the project prices come in for the work that we do is actually 10K and below, which is really cool because you can get a startup going. And with this, your idea, it's very honed. It's very simple. So it shouldn't require a whole lot. It shouldn't require $100,000 to get up and going. You know what I mean? Like it really shouldn't. So
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. That's amazing. Thank you. Because I would have never imagined it to be that, it's great. Because I've even thought of doing, I'm like, now all my dreams come back to life. I wanted to do an accountability. That would be an app to help people be accountable. But then I also, because like with the Facebook group, with the communities I build, a lot of times people are having people do actions and there could be one layer of accountability that happens. And then I'm like, oh man. And then if I could white label this app and it would go to each person that I run a community and then they can use it as another layer. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But the point is I've had a lot of these ideas that I'm excited about. So now that I know you, I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's part of me that's ready to go now because I know just from the learning of it, it would be worth it to go through the process. And like you said, build the skills so I can even understand how your mind works for us to create this. But then there's another part of me that still feels like, and maybe it doesn't matter, but I'm saying it out loud to see what you say. I'm still not clear on the group because I even said it in my talk. I'm like, really, it's a group of people. So it is an event. It is a group. It is a class. It's a club. It's a forum. So see what I mean? Is like, I'm still, the idea of group is still kind of like, it's really what you experienced at that event. It's being with people that have a shared goal. Because that's what's important is because a lot of people, they're in their box, they're in their couch, they're with their normal friends and family. And it's very hard to go outside of that because we're comfortable, and until we have that big goal and we want to learn something. And then we go to the big conference and then you're like, oh my gosh, other people think like me. What? Like the whole time I thought I was crazy or whatever it is that we say. And so it really is the event. And so that's the piece that I still am like fuzzy on is like what actually, then I mentioned ClassPass. I'm like, technically, I don't know if that would, because now I'm going crazy. Like, you know what I mean? That's where
let me break down for you. So before you go too off the rails with this, like stay focused on one thing.
Okay.
You think about, so I almost there was an app that I saw a long time ago when I didn't have a truck and I needed a truck to move some stuff. And it's almost like an Uber for trucks type of thing, right? And I found it and I'm like, sweet. I downloaded it. Well, they're only available out where you guys are, California, Nevada, Arizona. But then as I signed up for it, I got emails every once in a while that said, hey, we're now live in Missouri. Hey, we're now live in Texas. Hey, we're now live in Ohio, whatever. And they kind of moved this way. And I think if you wanted to build this to be all encompassing for all of this stuff eventually, one, you need to show that like there's actually going to be a demand for it. But I would start with like groups and the hell with everything else, right?
To worry about the other stuff.
Don't worry about anything else. And then you would say, hey, now we have events. Hey, now we have conferences. Hey, now and you could and all you have to do is basically, this is where the beauty of software development comes in, is you can have the public facing app that's out there that just is promoting groups and doing all this stuff. And you're just killing it and rocking it over here. While in the background, you and hopefully Dan are working on building the events piece. And then you can promote that and say, hey, on November 1st, we're going live with events. And now we can promote that out to everything else. You just open up a whole new thing and then kind of have a roadmap for those things going on. So again, it's that elephant analogy. Don't try to do everything. Just do one thing at a time. Do it well.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, there's some of those groups, let's say someone wants to join a book club, right? And they meet once a month or something, right? And I'm just remembering another one I heard about. I need to look at it. The Invited app. I don't even know what it is, but somebody had mentioned that to me. But anyway, so there's a book club, let's just say, but they charge $30 a month. And then maybe there's a membership group and they do a social club. They do like social events. And actually my friend, she just started a social club in Dubai because she just moved there and she was like, I want to meet people. And so what do? We start groups, right? And so it's a really full social club, but she's charging like $80 a month. So how does it just show the price kind of thing? Or again, we're trying to start. So like, thanks for calming me down because that's the next place in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I would put a simple tag on it. Basically, when you're adding a group, you would say paid or free. And all it would do is if it's marked as paid, it would show as paid. And like that, I wouldn't go too down the rabbit hole of like, you could if you knew exactly what it would be, something that's like a little bubble that notates, hey, this is a paid group. And then you could maybe even have a filter for that. So you could, I only want to join free.
For them. So it doesn't have to, it just says reach out to how do they sign up for it, I guess is the question.
Well, that's also that you don't have to worry about that because you're just linking them to the group. So that sign up process is taken care of off the platform.
Okay. Got it. And
That's the way I had understood what you wanted to do. If you want to do it in the app, that's a whole different story.
yeah. As a starting point, I think that's good. So it's linked, right? That makes sense. So when they're entering their info, then it links to the website. And then so it just goes straight in. But the website will know it came from me, right? There's some kind of special link that they could do if they want, just so they see how many signups they're getting. So that way, if I do want to have them sponsor stuff, they're like, oh yeah, I want more of that because I'm already getting leads from her.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay. Cool. Okay. What criteria, and I'm almost done. Thank you.
No worries.
I think this is my last piece. What criteria do you think would be good for me to know now on what qualify? I know this is a question for me, but I'm just curious what you think for a group to be in this directory.
Yeah, because you're going to have people at every stage. You're going to have people who are just wanting to start to get exposure.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have people who, I mean, you probably think about people who already have successful ones. They're probably going to be harder to get onto your platform. So I would say it almost would be people who are kind of new or just starting out, because they're looking for that. They're looking for that platform. Like, how do I go and cast my net to get more people into this? Because if you already have a Facebook group with thousands of people, or you have a school group with hundreds of paying clients, you're really not worried about like traffic. But traffic is always a consideration that even the people at the highest level have to worry about, right? So I think your pitch is almost different for both. But I mean, that's kind of why I would keep in the approval and moderation piece, to where like can't just list themselves. That actually goes through an application where I say, hey, here's the name, it's paid, here's the link to it, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, hey, thank you for submitting. We'll review and we'll post it when we review it. Mm-hmm. And then that way you'd have visibility until that gets to the point where you can't handle those by hand anymore.
Yeah.
And then you move on to a different model.
Right.
Those are my thoughts on that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be good. And somehow being able to tell if something gets sunsetted, knowing that, how do I keep track of that stuff? If they're no longer like running the group, just so the thing stays clean. So that's what I don't want it to be another thing that's annoying.
That's interesting. Yeah. Cause you could have like, like you said, those ones that are, yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, maybe like every month. I mean, that might be annoying. Maybe it'd be every quarter. If there's something where they would have to update in order for them to stay on the website. There's some kind of like thing they have to fill out every quarter.
Yeah, that would be what you'd have to do, because it would be tough to know just because there's a link in there that it's broken or it got moved or it's in the past or whatever. You could do this with events. Events are easy because you say, hey, here's the date of the event. And then you can just filter out for anything that's in the past, and then it just doesn't show up anymore in the app. That's easy. But groups that are kind of there all the time, there would almost have to be some kind of...
So this is a good example. I'm going back to where my brain is, where I'm like, I'm really missing out on events. So this PodFest, since I just talked to them this morning, this is a good example. They have Pod Lab where every week they do a training. So that's a group, right? It's an online group. And so let's say someone sees Pod Lab, I guess then they would find out about the event when they joined Pod Lab, right? In the description, it would say, come join this group because we have events all over. We have this yearly thing. Like it could say it in their description or something, right? When it links to their thing. Yeah. And then maybe with the checkboxes, it will say like this group does in-person and online. And then they could basically, because it doesn't have to be the group, doesn't always have to be in person. It could be online. Anyway, I don't know. There's something there that I need to circle. So, okay. Well, this was incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was a great time.
Yeah. I just need to listen back to this, but I'm really loving where we left, because either way, no matter what, I'm just declaring it here. I'm going to for sure do, no matter what happens, I'm doing that thing you said, the waiting list or the interest list or whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to do that for sure. Because if anything, I'll at least get feedback from people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would be a number to you that would make sense for me to move forward, for me to get signups with barely? I won't be proning it too crazy.
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's based on your audience level. If you promote it to, I would kind of go with percentages. Maybe like if you promote it to 10 people and 2 people sign up, I mean, 20%'s not bad, But if you promote it to 1,000 people and 2 people actually submit and sign up, then you're kind of like, okay. I would probably base it a little bit more on that,
Okay. Yeah.
rather than the hard and fast number.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, please share where people can reach out to you if they want to start their own no-code app or website.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is Dapper No Code, like it says on my shirt, .com. We have all the tools, all the services there. And then that calculator is actually the link to right there as well, too.
Okay. So. Okay. Awesome. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. I've never really done one of these live. So it was a very interesting, fun experience. Yay. So I hope people got value out of it.
Yeah. I'll send it to you in case you can use it for any of your clients and stuff that are looking at it. Might be interesting. So
yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. I'll reach out to you. What is it today? I don't even know what today is. Wednesday?
Yes, it's Wednesday.
Okay. I'll follow up by the end of the week. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you so much. You're awesome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.